In this video, I'm gonna walk you through an engine detail that I did a while back. It was on a 2014 Toyota Corolla. The engine bay hasn't been cleaned since the customer purchased it or since the car was made. So it was a few years on it. Now it wasn't that bad. I'll explain more in the video. It's a pretty standard detail, and the products and tools that I use, I explain it also in the video. But just to give you an upfront answer, the products I use is just a fender brush, a large easy detail brush, a lug nut brush, super clean diluted 10-to-1, and a water hose and a Metro Sidekick blaster to blow off any standing water. Those are the products and tools I use. Also a Meguiar's hyper dressing, use straight. Those are just tools that I use 90% of the time that I'm doing any type of engine bay detailing. So you don't need, I used to have like a bucket and used to put all my tools there, fill it up 3-4 gallons, put soap in there. That was just too much. I wasted a lot of water. It was much more of a mess. So now I just use a bucket just to hold the brushes themselves, but I don't fill it up with water. I just use it straightforward. I spray the APC into the engine bay and then start agitating without having a bucket filled with water or anything like that. And this entire video is sped up on me actually doing the engine bay detailing, just because I want to show you guys the entire process, not just cut out chunks here and there. Well, I still cut out pieces, but just to give you a more holistic view of an engine bay detailing, because I have videos in the past where I'm cleaning this section and then that section and then this section, but just to see like how you actually move, like if you're trying to start a business, then you kind of want to see like the entire process of like, okay, like what do you, how do you, because if you're just starting off, you want to make sure that, or you want to have a better idea or perspective on like how you actually do things when you're on the job site. So that's why it was a little bit more, longer than I would have made it. Again, it's sped up. That's why it's only 7 minutes long. But it is sped up so you can kind of see a more holistic view of like what to do when you're there if you're doing this as a business. If you're just doing this as a personal hobby, you can learn great tips from this too, but more so if you are looking to start a business, then you can kind of see just like, okay, how do you move around this and that and this. And it typically takes me anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes, extreme conditions, an hour to complete an engine bay, and that's actually cleaning it, drying it, and dressing it, just to give you a time stamp on how long it takes me and reflect it against yours. So let's get into the video. So let's go ahead and start off with the before condition. This is just going to be a simple pan across the engine bay. The vehicle hasn't been cleaned in several years since its ownership, but there was nothing too serious here, just your typical medium level of dirt and grime that's accumulated over the years. So it's not like anything exploded. It's just a very straightforward detail with just dirt, grime, and such. So I'm gonna start off with the all-purpose cleaner. This is super clean, yes, in a Meguiar bottle, diluted at 10-to-1. I'm starting with the hood because I want to work from the top down so I don't work over myself. Now in this detail specifically, I never take hoses with me to customers' locations, so I use whatever hose that customer has, whether they have one or not, or if the hose that they do have is in good condition. In this detail specifically, the hose was in terrible condition in terms of it was very kinked and just a cheap plastic, and I couldn't put a spigot on it because it was smushed. So I just work with what I have, and this is a perfect scenario of just me using the hose I have on hand. And I cleaned the entire hood after I cleaned the entire hood, and then I started drying it with a towel just because I know I'm not going to be rinsing it down and I don't want any of the water to dry on the underside of the hood. So that's why I'm wiping it down. And next I'm just taking off some of the stuck on debris that's on the cow hood area, so little acorns and such. You can blow this out beforehand, but it wasn't many, so I just waited till I got to that part to start picking them out. Then again, using the super clean to clean off the cow hood area. My primary brushes are going to be 3 brushes. One I already used, which is that fender brush. The second is the lug nut brush that I was just using, and then the last one is the big size easy detail brush. And those 3 are what I use 90% of the time to do any type of engine bay detailing. Sometimes I may use a smaller easy detail brush. See, that's the big one. Sometimes I might use a smaller one, but for the most part, my primary tools are those 3 brushes, the APC, and when you'll see later in the vehicle, in the detail, it's going to be the Metro Sidekick blaster to blow off any standing water. And there we go again with the kinked up hose again, and ideally I'd want to take my own water hose. It's not worth it for me in terms of like the mess I'd create in my van every single time. So I just use whatever I have, whatever the customer has, whether it's a good hose or not a good hose. And some people ask me, well, what if they don't have one and you really need one? My best answer I can give you is either take your own hose or just figure it out. That's the absolute best advice I can give you. Is I'm not always gonna walk into the most perfect condition scenario with every detail. So my game plan is once I get there, I'll figure it out. Depending on the detail, of course. If I already know beforehand, they tell me that it's a super, you know, caked up dirt truck and it hasn't been cleaned in 5 years and we take it mudding, I'm gonna make sure that the customer has what I need. But if it's more of a, you know, basic cleaning of a wash or something, I'll just figure it out if I know the condition isn't horrid. And here I am just drying off the engine bay now because I've cleaned it, I rinsed it off, I cleaned it, so everything is for the most part clean. Now I just want to wipe it down to dry off any remaining water. Then I use the Metro Sidekick, as I mentioned earlier, to blow off any standing water so I can see its true condition. That way I really know if I need to touch anything up or if I'm good to go, and I can move on to the next step, which would be dressing. But before that, let me show you the after condition, because I mean that in itself is already looking great. So you could just stop right there and you'd be good to go. This customer was selling his vehicle, so you know in reality that's already 10 times better than what any other person will see as an engine bay. So that already looks great. I mean it's 80% clean. Yes, of course I'm not gonna clean every single last bit of dirt or grime on there because it's an engine bay. It's very there's a lot of areas it's very difficult to get to, and they're selling the car, so they wanted the pictures to look nice, and I achieved that result. So right then and there, you could just stop right there and you can sell it. Most people will be happy with this condition, but again, as detailers, we could take that extra step, which doesn't take too much time, and we could just dress the area with some type of plastic dressing. So what you see me do here now is use Meguiar's Hyper Dressing. I think I use it straight, so I don't dilute it. Meguiar's Hyper Dressing is very dilutable. But here I'm just gonna spray it onto the engine bay. Again, it is water based, so it's not gonna damage anything. So that's what I'm okay with, just spraying it across the engine bay, because if I wipe it down, if I oversprayed it somewhere like on the paint or something that's not just plastic, then it's absolutely fine, nothing's gonna get damaged. And I followed it up with a towel to make sure I evenly distribute that dressing across the plastic trim. That way there's no high spots of some area has, you know, it's nice and dressed, and then the other side is still kind of faded or not as black because I didn't spread out the product evenly. So I'm literally now just gonna follow up on all the trim and plastic and wipe it down, and of course any areas that I may have got overspray on. And now this is the after. Again, now it's looking just, you know, the big difference here is now all the plastic trim and plastic is just much more black and deep looking. So you know, with the before adding my Meguiar's Hyper Dressing or any dressing at that, is that good enough? Absolutely, especially for photos. If you know, if this is a tight budget detail, can you opt out to skipping out the dressing? Sure. You know, it definitely doesn't take that much time to apply, but just cleaning the engine bay itself, assuming it's not like completely faded and gray, it looks pretty good. But obviously you can take it a step further and dress it and make it look 10 times better. Okay, and that wraps up this engine bay cleaning. Hopefully you got some tips and tricks out of it. Now remember, I didn't mention it in the video, but make sure you're not using a pressure washer with super high pressure and holding it 1 inch away from the engine bay. No, use some common sense. As you saw in the video, I probably use less than half a gallon of water to rinse down the engine bay. It's very, very little water that I'm actually introducing into the engine bay. Now, if you're there sitting with the hose in the intake, to the battery, to the alternator, to like the wirings, then you're gonna probably run into some problems. But I just use just enough water to rinse off the cleaner from the engine bay and off to the ground to carry it away. I'm not there just holding it, trying to saturate it for 30 seconds. So use some common sense. Make sure you don't just hold it there and shoot it straight into the intake. Use some common sense. But other than that, leave any questions or comments you have down below. I'd like to hear your feedback, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. Any thoughts, leave the comments down below. And if you are interested in starting a detailing business, check out this guide here on how to get your first couple customers. So how to make your first 100 bucks with detailing services. check for that guide in the description box down below, right below this video. Click the show more and you'll be able to see the link to download that guide on how to get your first couple customers and make your first couple $100 with your detailing business. I will see you on the next one.